Geometry, we are starting a new unit today. So when you went to go print off your papers, you should have printed off two. The first one is a quadrilateral family tree. We will be using this the whole unit and we will be filling in the blocks as we go. And the other one we are doing today is 10.1 trapezoids, and on the other side it's kites. Okay, so we are finally moving away from triangles. That's awesome, right? Okay, we're going to start working on quadrilaterals. What is a quadrilateral? It is a four-sided shape, okay? So it's a four-sided shape. Okay, and all the angles add up to 360. All angles add up to, again, I'm writing 180, but I mean 360 degrees. So again, what's a quadrilateral? Is a four-sided shape, and all the angles add up to 360 degrees. All right, the first quadrilateral we are going to work on is trapezoids. So we'll write the definition, and then we will draw on this. And then we'll do the definition for isosceles trapezoid, and then we will write on this. And then we will work out these problems together. Okay, so what is a trapezoid? Okay, it's a quadrilateral. I'm going to shorten quadrilateral, just the word quad, with only one pair of parallel sides. Okay, so your lines are going to be parallel, okay? Every trapezoid has a mid-segment, okay? The mid-segment goes to the middle of the trapezoid, and the formula is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. So you're going to add the top and the bottom and divide it by 2. So let's grab our notes. Like I said, we will do trapezoid, and then we'll do the notes. And then we'll do the isosceles trapezoid, and then the notes. So let's talk about trapezoids. Okay, so reading our definition, a quadrilateral with only one pair of parallel sides. When looking, which ones look parallel to you? The left and the right, or the top and the bottom? The top and the bottom, right. Okay, remember, parallel sides are marked with little arrows like that. Okay, then all trapezoids have a what? They have a mid-segment going from left to right. Goes right through the middle, okay? And when you do that, these are congruent and these are congruent, okay? They should be equal because it's going through the middle on both sides. So this is the mid-segment. So again, parallel sides, when you draw your mid-segment, the left side, the two pieces will be equal, and on the right side, those two pieces will be equal or congruent, okay? Now let's talk about an isosceles trapezoid. Okay, what is an isosceles trapezoid? We'll write the definition first. Okay, it's a trapezoid. I'm just gonna write trap with two congruent legs. Okay, so the legs are the ones on the left and the right, okay? The bases are the top and the bottom, and the legs are the left and the right, okay? What are some key things we need to know is each pair of base angles are congruent. Okay, so let's look at this, okay? So what is a trapezoid? First off, a trapezoid, the bases are parallel, okay? And now we know the trapezoid, that's an isosceles, the two sides, or the two legs, are congruent. So I'm gonna mark those congruent. Okay. Each pair of base angles are congruent. So here's our base angle here and our base angle here. So that bottom base, those angles match, and the base on the top, those two angles match. Okay. What else do we know? Okay, the diagonals are congruent. Okay, the diagonals are congruent. So where are diagonals? That goes from one corner to the opposite. And again, I want to turn my paper just so I can draw this better. Okay. There you go, the diagonals are congruent. So that line is congruent to that line. Okay. And what else? Okay, if a trapezoid, move this back over, has a pair of congruent base angles, then it is isosceles. Okay. The last thing we need to know is, you're gonna have to make an extra dot, is consecutive angles are supplementary. Those are some words we have not seen in a while. So what does consecutive mean? Okay, consecutive means the top and the bottom. When you're following the line, the first angle, and then you hit the second angle. Those angles will add up to 180 degrees, okay? Why? Because if I was to split this in half, right? These angles match and these angles match, and they add up to 360 degrees. So if I split them away from each other, these two would have to add up to 180, and these two would have to add up to 180. And that's why consecutive angles are supplementary. And supplementary just means they add up to 180. Okay, so now let's think about what we have on a trapezoid. Let's look at all of it. So the two types, we have a normal trapezoid, nothing special about it. The top base and the bottom base are parallel, and they have a mid-segment, where on the left side the two pieces are congruent, and on the right side the two pieces are congruent. We have an isosceles one, where the bases are parallel and the two sides are congruent, so they match. Since those match, the base angles have to match and the top angles have to match, right? And since those match, when we draw our line and draw our line, the diagonals have to match. Whew. So now let's try to solve for some of these problems. Okay, find x in this isosceles triangle. So since it's isosceles, what do we know? We know where these two things are located at, those two sides, those legs, they are congruent. And when something is congruent, how do we solve? We set them equal to each other. So 3x plus 6 equals 6x minus 18. Okay? How do we get the x's to one side? I'm going to minus 3x minus 3x. So 6 equals 6 minus 3 is 3x minus 18. I can zoom in so you guys can see better. Okay, now what am I going to do? I am going to add 18 to both sides. 6 plus 18 is 24 equals 3x. The last step would be divide by 3. I'm going to go like this so we know that this is the end of that problem. Divide by 3, divide by 3, x equals 24 divided by 3 is 8. Okay, and that's what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to find x. So that one's done. Okay. Moving on to number 2, Okay? Find all the missing angles. It's an isosceles trapezoid. So let's see what we know again. We know the two base angles have to match. So that's 106. Okay? We know the two top angles have to match. So how do we find those? Well, what do all four angles add up to? Since it's a quadrilateral, they all add up to 360. So 360 minus 106 minus 106, because this one and this one gets me to 148. Okay, so again, all I did is my total angles, so all these will add up to 360 minus this angle equals 148. Now we just split this 148 degrees between how many angles? 2. So 148 divided by 2 equals 74. So both of these angles are 74 degrees. Make sure you put your degree symbol so we know that they are angles. All right, let's move on to number 3. So notice we have the parallel lines, okay? And we have two congruent sides. So this is an isosceles trapezoid again. And it says P to R is 3x minus 7. So 3x minus 7, P to R. And Q to S is 2x plus 8. So Q to S is 2s plus 8. What do we know about isosceles trapezoids? We know that the bases are parallel, the sides are congruent, and the diagonals are also, remember correctly, the diagonals are also congruent. So we can set this diagonal equal to this one and vice versa. So 3x minus 7 equals 2x plus 8. Okay, I will minus the smaller x over, so minus 2x. So 3 minus 2 is 1x, then minus 7 comes down. These cross out, you are left with 8. How do we solve for that? Add 7, so x equals 15. And it told us to find x, so that's what we're looking for, so we are done. Okay. I want to separate all these so I know that which one goes with which. Okay, the last one. EF is the mid segment, so it's in the middle. Find AB. So first off, what is the formula for a mid segment? Your mid segment equals base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. Do we know what base 1 on top is? No, so I'm going to put an X. Do we know the mid segment? Yes, it's 22. Do we know the other base? Yes, 16. So we're going to plug in what we know. Okay? If you don't know, this is the mid segment. This is base 2. So MS, so mid segment 22, equals base 1. This is our base 1 up here. So X plus base 2. What's base 2? 16 divided by 2. That's the formula. So now how do we get x by itself? Can we move this 16 first? No, because it's going to run into this divided by 2. So we have to get divided by 2 away first. So what's the opposite of divide by 2? Multiply by 2. Okay, so those cross out. 22 times 2 is 44 equals x plus 16. Okay. So from there, how do we get x by itself? We will have to move 16. So 44 minus 16 is 28. So x equals 28. So base 1 equals 28, which is also what AB is. So you can either say base 1 is 28 or AB is 28. And that's your answer. Okay? Hopefully you guys got all that. I will zoom out for a second so you can copy all of it in case you missed some of it. Okay. All right. Let's move on to kites now. Okay, hopefully you guys have that all. If not, you can pause the video and copy the rest. Okay. So on your family tree of quadrilaterals, our next stop is going to be a kite, okay? So let's go on to what a kite is, okay? What's the definition? It's a quadrilateral with two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. Okay, there's that word again, consecutive. Okay, let me move this over so you guys can see. Okay, what is consecutive? It just means when you follow the path of the shape, we work on one side, then you'll hit another side. So let's talk about what kites look like based off that right there. Okay, so what I was saying is what it means by consecutive congruent sides is if I was to follow this side and then this side, this would match this one, and then the bottom two would match each other. So you have a pair, two pairs, right? The top pair and the bottom pair, where the top pair match and the bottom pair match. And so if you're following it, this side and then this side matches this side and then this side. Okay? The next thing you need to know about kites is the diagonals are perpendicular, okay? So they form a right angle. Think about if you were flying a kite that you see in all the old school cartoons and all that. They always have a line going up and down and left and right that are perfect, normally straight sticks or whatever. So the diagonals make a perpendicular angle in the middle, right there. Okay? The last thing about kites you need to know is that only one pair of opposite angles are congruent. One pair of opposite angles, let's get OPP, angles are congruent. Okay, so what that means is you're gonna have a pair, so two angles that are congruent. Which two will be congruent? The top and the bottom or the left and the right? It's actually gonna be the left and the right. Why? Because it's almost a side angle side situation, right? You have the first side and the second side, which is congruent to this first side and this second side. So the angles in the middle will match. This top triangle has 1 mark and 1 mark, and this bottom one has 2 and 2. 1, 1 does not match 2, 2. 1, 2 matches 1, 2. That's why the left and the right are congruent, and the top and the bottom aren't. Because when you follow the path, you don't say the same thing on top and bottom. You say 1, 1 for the sides and 2, 2. Okay? Hopefully that makes all the sense. And that's the rules for kites, okay? So now we have just a few examples. I am going to zoom in like I did last time, and we can solve. So on the first one you notice, it says, FGHJ is a kite. Find angle F. So we want to find this guy right here, okay? Since we don't know what he is, I'm going to put in X. Well, what do we know about this? We know that this side also has to match it, so it is also X, okay? Because these are congruent. Okay, so if we're trying to find this one right here. What do we know about kites in general or quadrilaterals in general? What do we know about the angles? All the angles have to add up to 360 degrees. If you said that, you are correct. So how can we find for these two missing angles? We can subtract 128 and 72. So minus 128 minus 72, which leaves me with 160. And once we have those, we know that the last two angles will have to split 160 in half, right? Because they have to match. They're both x. So 160 divided by 2. What is 160 divided by 2? 80. That means h is 80 degrees and angle F is 80 degrees. And that's the one they want you to solve for. Another way you could have done this, guys, is x plus 128 plus 72 and set it equal to 360. Either way works, however you want to do it. It will get you the same answer. Okay? So, like I said, if you want to just do x plus 128 plus 72 equals 360, that would have gotten you 2x plus 200 equals 360 minus 200 minus 200, 2x equals 160 divided by 2, x equals 80, which is what we got here, 80 degrees. So either way, you could have got to the answer. If this way is easier for you to do it that way. If not, you can just take 360, subtract the ones you know, and then you know you have to divide that by 2 to split up between those two angles. All right, the next problem. I'm gonna draw a little line to separate. Hey, x, w, y, z is a kite. Find z, y. So we need to find z, y. So z to y is right here. It's a side, and we don't know what it is. I'm going to label it with an x. So what do we know about kites? We know that these sides are congruent, and these sides are congruent. So if zy equals x, that means xy is also x. Notice, now we have a triangle where we know 2 of the 3 sides. When we have a triangle where we know 2 of the 3 sides, how can we solve for that third side? I hope you said Pythagorean theorem, because if you did, then you are correct. So we can take away all the rest of that stuff, and we can add up the 2 sides we know and do the square root of that, right? Because x squared equals 5 squared plus 8 squared. So x squared equals 25 plus 64, which is 89. Okay, from there, what can we do? We take the square root, and so x equals the square root of 89. And I think that's prime, so we are done. Because it says find z to y. So zy equals the letter x, and x equals square root of 89. So zy equals the square root of 89. All right. Hope you guys have the space to write all that. We have one more problem, and then we are done for the day. Okay. So the last one says WXYZ is a kite. Okay. WXY, and it's an angle WXY equals 120. So W to X to Y. So this whole thing right here, and we do the letter in the middle, which is X, equals 120 degrees. I'm just going to write it outside. Okay? WZY, so from W to Z to Y. So the whole thing, this whole thing, not just the split in half part, the whole thing, equals 4x. Okay? ZWX, and W's in the middle, so the W gets the mark. We should actually be marking these all different. I'm gonna mark this one with 3, because these are all different. So ZWX, where W's in the middle, so that's the one that gets the mark, is 10x. Find ZYX. ZYX is this one right here. So does it match 1, 2, or 3. It matches angle 3. So I'm going to mark the 3 things. And so we already know that angle ZYX, this one right here, has to equal the same thing as this one. So 10x. We will come back to this. Okay, so we know that this is 10x. Okay, so now what do we know about quadrilaterals in general when it comes to their angles? They add up to, if you said 360 degrees, you are right. So I'm going to do the work down here. So 4x plus 10x plus 10x plus 120. So the first angle plus the second angle plus this angle, I always like to write my x's first, plus this number. 120 equals, all the angles have to be 360 degrees. So now I want to combine alike terms. So all the x's will be combined. So 4x plus 10x plus 10x is 24x. 120 does not have an x next to it, so I just added at the end. Equals 360 degrees. I'm going to minus the 120 over, minus 120 over, and you get 24x, these cross out, equals 240 degrees. How you solve for x is divide by 24 on both sides. And when you divide by 24, x equals 240 divided by 24 is 10. So now let's go back up to the top here. I want to zoom out a little bit. So we know that this angle right here, the one they want to solve for, ZYX, is equal to 10x. So angle ZYX is equal to 10. X is 10. And what is 10 times 10? 10 times 10 is 100. So ZYX equals 100 degrees. And we are done. All right. So that is all the notes for today. You will have work. It will be posted today. You'll work on it Thursday and Friday. Progress reports come out next week, guys. So everything needs to be in, I would say, by Thursday. If not, it will not get graded by Friday and be on your progress report. We have, if you're online, we have tutorials Friday from 1 to 2. And if you're in person, then you know when your tutorials are is posted on the board in the classroom. Okay, guys, have a great day. Bye.